Hey Virgo, welcome in. I almost didn't make this one today, but something told me to sit down and record it anyway, and now I think I understand why. Something enormous is moving in your direction, not crawling, not inching forward the way good things sometimes do when you've been waiting so long you've forgotten what hoping even feels like. No, this is moving the way a tide moves when it's decided the shore has waited long enough. And I need you to stay with me here because what I want to talk about today isn't luck. It isn't chance. What I want to talk about is the particular kind of alchemy that happens when someone has been doing the invisible work, the quiet, unglamorous, unseen work, and the universe simply catches up. There is a version of winning that looks like a lightning bolt. Sudden, blinding, everyone sees it at once. And then there's another kind, the kind that arrives like dawn. So gradual you almost miss it until you realize the whole sky has changed color and you're standing in a light you don't fully recognize yet because you've spent so long standing in the dark. You may be approaching that second kind of dawn right now. Think about what you've been carrying, not just recently, but for a long time now. The weight of trying, the weight of hoping without evidence, the weight of continuing to show up for something that hadn't shown up for you yet. That weight is real, and it has cost you something: energy, time, maybe pieces of your certainty that things could actually turn around. This reflection invites you to consider: what would it feel like in your body to finally exhale fully, knowing that the waiting portion of this season is ending? Because here is what I keep coming back to: Jackpot's real ones, the ones that change the shape of your life, they rarely look like what you imagined when you first started wishing for them. They tend to arrive wearing the clothes of something ordinary: a conversation, a door that finally opens after years of knocking, a number that comes through, a yes from something you'd almost stopped reaching for. And the people who receive them, the ones who are ready, they tend to share one quality: they stayed open, even when staying open felt like the most expensive thing they could do. Some of you watching this have been in a contraction, a long one, the kind where everything felt tight: finances, opportunities, relationships, possibilities, like the whole of your life had narrowed into a corridor with no visible exit. And you kept walking anyway. Not because you were certain the corridor would open, but because standing still felt worse than moving forward in the dark. That corridor may be opening. This reflection invites you to consider: where have you been underestimating how close you actually are to something breaking in your favor? Because proximity is tricky. When you're inside the waiting, you can't see the edges of it. You can't feel how thin the wall between where you are and where you're going has become. But sometimes, not always, but sometimes the moments that feel like the longest stretch of nothing are actually the final moments before everything. I want to talk about happiness for a moment. Real happiness, not the performance of it, not the version that exists for other people's consumption, the kind that arrives privately in the middle of an ordinary moment and just settles into your chest like something coming home. Some people watching this have forgotten what that feels like, not because they're broken, but because they've been in survival mode for so long that joy started to feel like a luxury they couldn't afford, like something other people got to have. This reflection invites you to consider, have you given yourself permission to believe that genuine happiness is still available to you, not as a reward for suffering, but simply as something you deserve? Because the win I'm sensing around you isn't just logistical. It isn't only about numbers or outcomes or external circumstances finally aligning. It's something that runs deeper than that. It's the particular relief of a person who has been bracing for impact for so long, finally realizing they can unclench, they can breathe out. The impact they were dreading isn't coming. Something else is. There's a quality to moments just before a significant shift, a strange, suspended quality, like the second before a wave crests. Everything goes unnaturally still. And people often mistake that stillness for stagnation. They panic in it. They start to contract, to doubt, to talk themselves out of the very thing that's on its way to them. If you are in that stillness right now, if things feel suspended and uncertain and almost too quiet, I want you to consider the possibility that you are in the second before the crest, not in another long stretch of nothing, in the moment just before. This reflection invites you to consider, what would you do differently today if you genuinely trusted that something extraordinary was already in motion on your behalf? Because trust is its own kind of action. It isn't passive. It doesn't mean sitting still and waiting. Trust, real trust, is the thing that keeps you moving forward with open hands instead of clenched fists. It's the difference between walking toward something and bracing against everything. And you may need to practice that right now. Opening your hands, loosening your grip on the specific shape you decided this had to take. Because sometimes the jackpot doesn't arrive in the packaging you ordered. Sometimes it arrives in something you almost didn't notice, something you almost walked past. This reflection invites you to consider, what has been presenting itself to you lately that you've been too exhausted or too guarded or too convinced of your own smallness to fully receive. The power is yours. It always has been. Not the power to force outcomes, but the power to remain open enough, present enough, trusting enough to let something enormous find its way to you. The huge win, the jackpot, the happiness that feels almost too good to hold without flinching. Not eventually. In this chapter, in this turning, in this version of your life that you are actively, quietly building, even on the days it doesn't feel like building at all, trust yourself with this. You've come too far in the dark to shrink now that the light is this close. Before you go, I want to hear from you in the comments. What area of your life feels like it's right on the edge of a breakthrough? And what's one thing you've been talking yourself out of receiving? Drop it below. I genuinely read everything you share. See you in the next one. And listen, you are allowed to have good things. You always were.